welcome to the workshop. You know we are building a cabin right now, but today we're going to take a slight break because there's a lot of you that are at home and could use a fun project to do or just some good content to watch, which is moi. Ha! So today we are going to learn, or I'm going to show you how to make these like photos out of epoxy. So basically you can take any photos you've taken, clippings out of magazines, which is what these are. These are all just really cool advertisements. I'm a big Volvo guy. So, you know, these old Volvo ads, I mean, they're so cool. So, this is a new way to give those photos that you have or clippings or what have you new life. So, we are going to walk together how to use epoxy resin to cover these on plywood and just give you some really cool wall art. You can either keep them like this, or you can just nail on and glue on a cool little frame around it. And then voila, you've got a really cool piece of art. So before you get into epoxy, you need to be prepared, okay? You need gloves. You need the epoxy resin. And for this epoxy resin, I'm gonna have a link in the description below. This is my favorite stuff, and it works really well for this type of project. You want some painter pyramids, and that keeps your piece of plywood or whatever you're adhering your pieces to off the ground, so if drips go over the edge, it's not gonna glue that board to your work surface. You wanna put plastic down, so when the epoxy resin does go over it or over the project, it will land on plastic and won't wreck your surface underneath, because epoxy resin is very strong, and when it gets stuck on something, it's not moving. It can be very messy, so be prepared. You need mixing cups, you need something to mix it. I have a drill with a little mixing head on it. You need the blowtorch to help pop the air bubbles, because epoxy resin, as it cures, it heats up and it creates some air bubbles, and you don't want that. You can also use a heat gun, and this also heats the product up and makes it more, I don't know if the right word is viscous. I wanna say viscous or more runny, and that makes it nice and level. I think I pretty much answered all the questions that might arise. However, if you do have a question, ask me in the description below or in the comments below. Like the video, smash that like button, subscribe. You know, you can throw that dinger on for notifications if you want to hang out more often and watch all the goodies that I'm putting out your way. So, yeah, let's just go, let's just do it, okay? Let's get after it. So I just want to use this beer box to show you that you can make this pretty much out of anything. Certain products or the art from certain products is kind of cool. So what we're gonna do here is just cut that out. If I know how to use this knife here. One thing to note is the epoxy resin is obviously a wet kind of product. So depending on what you're trying to put epoxy resin on, it can sometimes bleed through and change the color of whatever you're putting that epoxy resin on. I'm not too worried about it for this beer box. My photos are like laminated, so that shouldn't be a problem. Boom, that's kind of fun. These are just some of my go-to beers right now. Okay, cool. All right, okay, now it's time to prep our epoxy resin. Use this cardboard here and mix it on that so we don't get it on our plywood. Now epoxy resin can be considered expensive, I guess, but when you buy a big thing of it, and you know, if you have a bunch of projects you can do, I mean, technically this is probably a lot cheaper than going to a store and getting artwork framed anyhow, and you're doing this yourself, which is kind of fun. Now we're gonna do 2 of these beer cups worth of hardener. The hardener is a lot runnier. I like to put the hardener in first, my mixing pail. That way it doesn't stick to the bottom. Now that I've got 2 cups of hardener, 2 cups of epoxy, this is a perfect mix because, well, these are the same size cups and I have 2 of each. So I'm gonna put the hardener in first, and it's runnier, so the hardener is gonna come out a lot faster than the actual epoxy or the part A. And this stuff is a lot more goopy. You can see how goopy that is. Whatever you do, don't do it on your favorite table. Because this sticks a lot more in the cup, using this popsicle stick just helps get the majority of that product out. So you don't want to waste it, and because you kind of need as much as you can for that even measurement that we made. Now we mix. You can buy these bits. I'll also have a link for this in the description below. I think I got this off Amazon. It's just a great mixer. Doing this by hand just takes a long time, and you just might not get a good mix. So as you mix it, you'll see, can't really get a camera angle of it, but you'll see when it's not mixed. It kind of looks like there's a bunch of string in it. It's that thicker stuff kind of mixing in with the hardener. And you don't want to whip it up, because you don't want to produce more air bubbles, which will create more work for us when we lay it down. Good. This shows you how thick it is. It's thick enough that the whole thing spins when you're mixing it. All right, we're mixed. First thing we got to do is lay down a little, you can call it a seal coat, or kind of, for this particular instance, and believe it or not, I've not done this yet. Normally I use a spray glue to glue my pictures down, but I mean, epoxy resin is stronger than glue for this case, in my opinion. So we're actually gonna put a thin layer down, pour a little on the piece of wood that we're gonna use, and then glue our photos down. And then after all our photos are on there for just a couple minutes to get tacky, because if we're putting a thin coat on, then we're gonna flood coat the whole thing. Let's start off with a little top coat to glue our photos to. We're just putting a little down at first, because this is what we're gonna use to glue down our photos. This is where the toothpicks come in handy too, to get a nice thin layer all over. Actually, this probably works better than the paintbrush. Paintbrush really doesn't get that thin layer like the toothpick does. Ah, this is working really good. Toothpick, toothpick, you are so good. Toothpick, toothpick, yes, yes, yes. Yeah, I put way too much down on here. Okay, so now we're gonna lay down our photos, make sure there's no dust on them. And as straight as you can, because we are gonna run this thing through the table saw. Actually, I think this is more productive if I go that way. So if you're wondering, I put on a new glove for this part. So I'm just gonna squeegee this lightly. You want that nice stick. You want to leave room, if you're doing multiple pieces like I am, you want to leave room so you can cut your pieces out in between them. We're going to use some of this epoxy and put some on the backing, because these are thicker and I just want them to have a little extra stick. Like any epoxy resin or glue, you know, you do have a working time, so you want to be as efficient as possible, and that's why we get all our stuff organized before we start doing this, because you don't want to all of a sudden be rushing because your product is starting to cure and get hard. I should do a YouTube live with this. We'll be hanging out, having beers. That sound like a good time? Okay, boom, stuck. They are stuck. I hope they don't float when I put a big old flood coat on it. Now is the time to do the big one, the big pour. Because each piece is kind of separate, I recommend you put a little loop on each one just to get enough product on each piece of artwork here. Well, I don't typically like to scrape out what I mixed, so I wouldn't scrape out whatever's left in here, because sometimes it didn't fully mix on the very sides of your pail, and then you can sometimes get a kind of a hazy pour. So I'm gonna just use a popsicle stick just to get this product a little bit leveled out, as well as we want full coverage over everything. You want the product to come right over the edge because that creates that kind of bond on your edges, which is really important because you don't want this to ever peel up off the epoxy. And as soon as you have epoxy on all your surfaces, you'll notice it'll level out because you break that surface tension, and then that epoxy is kind of given a free path to kind of go. It's kind of like when you see water start dripping somewhere, other water can kind of join it, if that makes any sense. I think that's pretty darn good. Now we're gonna get the heat gun and just kind of heat it up, and it'll just level out a bit more. It might be hard for you to tell, but I'll do right here. You can see some air bubbles, so watch the heat gun. See that? Just totally pops them. Very cool. Sometimes you get a hair stuck in it, which isn't that fun. And because I have two dogs that like to just put their hair absolutely everywhere, unfortunately, that sometimes happens to me. But you can just scoop it out and then just reheat it up wherever you scooped it out just to get that back to level. As long as the product is warm and is heated up, it will level out quite a bit. Let's see if we can get those last air bubbles. All right, so this is the main part. This is the important part because this is the epoxy resin and the art you're covering, so you wanna make sure it looks really good before you leave. Don't let yourself be too social distant from your piece because you gotta make sure that things are happening well and doesn't catch fire or something. But mainly you just wanna make sure that if new air bubbles come up, you can remove those by using your heat gun or your blowtorch. All right, we will see you tomorrow when we cut this. Next day, baby. I'm not gonna knock on, but here. Like, come on, how cool is epoxy resin? I mean, that is just too cool. All right, as badly as I want to start cutting this out and doing all that stuff now, it's in my best interest to just to give this another, I might start working on this tonight, but you really do want this to really firm up. Little bits of dust here and there, but for what we're doing, it's parfait. Parfait! Oh! So I think we're gonna wait the day and then come back and see where we're at. All right, I think it's been over 48 hours now. They recommend 72 hours, but this is good to go. So we're gonna cut these out, and then after that, I mean, as soon as you cut them out, it's kind of up to you what you wanna do. You could put a frame around it. The frameless actually kind of looks really cool to see that plywood on the side. So yeah, we're gonna cut these out on my table saw. If you don't have a table saw, you can always do it with a skill saw, but you risk marking up the front face of your project or whatever you put in epoxy resin. Because epoxy resin is very strong, but like anything, if you drag something that's metal or, you know, the kind of leveling plate of the circular saw, if that was to just drag across your piece, there's a really good chance that you're gonna get a scratch on it. So we're gonna run this through the table saw as straight as possible, and we'll go from there. Okay, so my camera died and I did not know, but I had already cut half of my piece of plywood with all the pictures on it, which is unfortunato, but basically I've already got a couple of these ready to go. I've left some wood. I suggest you leave a little bit of wood around the piece that we've epoxied just to eliminate any possible chance of it wanting to pop or crack along the piece where it hits the wood. Just stay away from the edges a little bit, okay? That's what I'm trying to say. Well, I was gonna make frames around this, but this video is already gonna be really long because I literally just came from editing it. So I'm gonna scrap that idea. If you guys wanna learn how to make frames around this, you can leave a comment below. But honestly, these things look so cool frameless. So we've got the Lagunitas Super Cluster. That's a cool beer label. Hazy IPA, that's pretty cool. Jai Alai, also very cool. Iceland photo, super cool. Another Iceland photo, just as cool. Big Iceland, boom. And another big Iceland. So as you can see, this is actually pretty easy. I really hope you guys liked the video. I know it's a longer video, but I really wanted you to see the step-by-step process of how you can do this. Epoxy resin is phenomenal stuff. You can literally do almost anything you can dream up or come up with, you can do with epoxy resin. Within reason, don't be too cray-cray now. But literally, go have fun, because I know this is a tough time. I'm worried just like you are, whether it's the stock market, housing market, job, it goes on and on. So it's a little cray-cray. So do yourself a favor and come up with a project. It doesn't have to be this project, but this is one that's a lot of fun and you can do it many, many times on many, many things. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. Please like this video and subscribe if you enjoyed yourself. And I'll see you on the next one, which will most likely be another episode of the cabin build. Yoo-hoo! Peace!